Hi there, I'm James Osborne, the co-founder of the Recruitment Network, and this is the TRN Podcast. Every week, we unpack the strategies, the technologies, the processes and mindsets fueling today's top-performing recruitment agencies. We take a look behind the scenes of some great recruitment businesses. We listen to the real-life stories of those who have built those businesses, and we learn from some of the industry's greatest thought leaders to help you become both future fit and future relevant. So let's begin with this next episode of the TRM Podcast.
So we are going to dig deep into all things talent-related, and just understand what the best do a little bit differently and better than everybody else when it comes to retention and acquisition of people. Just before we get into that, how are you finding the market at the moment?
Not the best. I mean, I'd love to be more positive. I'd love to kind of give all of the good stuff around what's going on out there, but it's been very challenging. I speak to founders every single day. I must speak to at least 10 to 15 a week. And the consensus is very much the same with everybody, that it's very competitive, it's extremely tight, it's very, it's very difficult to find not only good talent, but also retain talent. And it's just, it's not a bad place to be, but it's also not the most positive at the moment, that's all.
Yeah. So I saw some interesting data the other day, which from our friends at the Recruitment Accountants, who tracked and benchmarked and compared Q1 of 2024 to Q1 of 2025, and the headlines was net fee income was down 11.25%, overheads as a percentage of net fee income was up by 4%, and obviously people have got a lot less cash in the bank. So it's a really interesting time. My take on it, and I'm a little bit biased, but I do see we track the mood of members every 2 days, and we're seeing the moodometer move in the right direction, and that's because we push our members pretty hard to really understand future fitness and what you need to be and do. And one of the big things, we ran 28 workshops with over 300 members looking at what future fit recruitment looks like, and the output was absolutely fascinating. We've got 16 different areas that we're pushing our members to help get better at. One of them obviously is talent related. So let's get into that a bit. You've got so much experience of working with agencies, so it'll be interesting to get your take on why some agencies manage to retain big billers while others just don't even get off the ground with new starters. So let's start with that. When you look at why people stay and join a company, big picture, what are the headlines and has it changed?
It has changed. As I said before, the competition is bigger than ever, and whether in the UK, US, or anywhere in the world. So there's a lot more options and selection for recruiters to go to when it comes to interviewing, and looking at where they want to go. But they're trying to look at companies everyone says that they have the best opportunities, they can offer them most amazing things. But what we're trying to really, really ascertain at the minute is, can they actually do that? And a lot of recruiters that we speak to there's just too much in the market. There's just way too much out there. And that's changed a lot since I started the business, a long time ago. It's just become a lot more of that competitive space. So that's what I would say is probably more than ever.
So, all right, so let's go to the things that aren't going to make a difference to retention and attraction. So everybody will be talking about flexibility and other benefits. Those are not game changers in my experience. Would you agree with that?
They're definitely not, no. I think one thing that a lot of people look at is retention in the businesses at the moment. There's a lot of agencies that have had a lot of churn, a lot of people in and out. And I think that what a lot of recruiters, when they go to interview at companies, they want to say, okay, right, if I'm going to go to this firm, have they got people that have been there a long time? Are they showing that they can progress in that business? And is there a lot of stability there for me to be in long term?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But and how are they? Because I know you do a lot around employer branding, just helping recruiters build their brand and sort of highlight themselves to maximize engagement. How are the best ones putting themselves out there? Because it's one thing to have something special, but it's another one to actually engage people and help potential employees find you.
Yeah, look, And I can only give you this example from where I've been in the rec to rec space for such a long time in different countries. You know, we can help businesses that help themselves. When we get phone calls from businesses and they're like, "Oh, we just want to fill our business up with 360 recruiters that are the best billers in other companies," you know, that's fantastic. But what do we got to? What information are you going to? What other information are you going to give us to go and take to market? You know, that's what we ask in the first instance, and usually that comes under branding, you know, and giving us some sort of like social marketing awareness to them to give to those people and these individuals. And that's what we really, really are trying to make sure that we've got to hand. So if you don't have a good brand presence built and good marketing built out, and you have all the relevant information for it to give us to provide to the market, then you know it's going to make our jobs difficult, but it's also going to not stand out to these recruiters. You know, these recruiters need to see that there's something there for them to understand what this company is all about and what they have to offer, not necessarily just by going on LinkedIn and checking out members of staff that are there, not just by going just on a website that's not been updated in 6 months with old jobs. You know, we need something that's kind of current and up to date. And if I said to a recruiter in the market right now, whether they're £1 million biller or 200 grand a year biller, whatever it is, you know, the ones that stand out are the ones that give us the marketing material to go to market. And I think that you really need to make sure that you implement that in your businesses to be able to use as leverage at the moment,
Yeah.
with everything on there that's updated.
Yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because if I think across that, we've got 500 members, let's say, some of which have got 100 heads, some of which are solo operators, some have marketeers, and in 2 or 3 weeks we've got 50 marketeers together in a room. I know when we grill them and push them and challenge them, they might, if they've got really effective about attracting clients or candidates, that's one thing. But too many of them have almost forgotten the third piece: is how do we promote ourselves as an employer? And the best board reports I've ever seen from our members are the one where they track the leads of potential employees, as well as for businesses who are looking for growth. How do you actually create something? And they've got a plan around that, the same way they've got a plan around attracting new clients.
Yeah, look, I've got, you know, upwards of 20 staff in my business, and I have a project built out, my own LinkedIn recruiter, with a network of people that I've built over years that allows me to stay in regular communication with them, that at the right time I will get them over to my business, and you know, I will be able to keep making sure that I'm always, you know, in their sites. And I think that businesses, and you know, let's just say you're in a tech recruitment industry, if you have your site set on tech recruiters from your competitors, you know, build a network, build a project, you know, stay in regular communication with it, put it on your diary once every quarter to reach out and to say that you're still here, and tell them what you've achieved in the last quarter and what you've been up to and what you've done, and actually do it for yourselves. Look, it does save you in the long run. You're not going to need rec to rec, you know, support if you've done it yourself. You're not going to need internal recruitment support if you've got your own little network and project set up. So it's just allows businesses to, you know, create their own community, their own, you know, I suppose potential prospects for their business long term. And that's a real big game changer for a lot of companies. Some of our clients, you know, have a CRM setup where it's built out that every candidate that we would send them goes on their CRM. And they've built their own internal database of potential future talent for their own business that's allowing them to, in 6-12 months time, they'll have hundreds of recruiters on there that have been built up in their CRM. And then, you know, they can do what they want with that at that point for their own future growth. And it's great because, and it's another bit of this kind of talk that we'll go through, but the talent from the past that's going into our future is so much smaller than it ever has been.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that because that's interesting. And just before we move on, can I just, if it's not around the benefits, is it around the big three of kind of pay as a remuneration, development, and sort of flexibility? What are the big drivers that would make you a best employer in recruitment?
5 days in office is still a problem. It really is still a problem. And if you've got 5 days in office set up, you are just, you know, it might work for you and it's great. And it works for some businesses really well, but you are limiting yourself against other talent. And you can't keep chopping and changing your internal policy around how many days you're in and out. And if someone comes up that's a 600-700 grand a year biller and they only want to work for 3-4 days in office, you can't entertain that because it's against your current policy, and it makes it very conflicting and you can't really manage that properly. So that 5 days in office, situation still causes problems for businesses, and it limits talent. And then your biggest billers, the ones that you want to retain, they're getting approached by other companies that are offering them 2-3 days in office, and then they're straight away they're going to turn their head and be like, oh, that sounds interesting because my life has changed, for example. But no, look, that doesn't really come up as a major problem. A lot of firms, I'd say probably 70-80% of them has got a 3-4 day a week in office policy, and it's hybrid and it's a bit more flexible. Remuneration has changed from a salary perspective. It's gone up naturally because everything else is going up. That hasn't really been a deciding factor, though, for a lot of our placements on whether they take a higher salary or what that looks like. It's the OTE is a big thing. If someone can go to a firm and they're on £10,000 a week contractor book, and or they're doing 15-20 grand a month on perm, and if they was to move to this firm over there that's offering them 1 day a week less in office, but their OTE potential is another 10-15 grand a year, that says a lot. And I think that's kind of where the competition is at right now. But to be honest with you, Gordon, like, as much as those three factors are really important, I just think that there's generally just there's a real limit in good talent in the market in general at the moment, just because of the what's happened the last 18 months, 2 years in the markets, and the next generation not coming through really at all, if not quick enough.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Two other quick questions about your offer. How, to what extent does the tech stack that we're using affect people deciding to join us?
Massively. And we've had a lot of recruiters contact us in the past saying, oh yeah, I don't even have LinkedIn Recruiter here. How do I do my job without LinkedIn Recruiter? Because they're maybe so used to it elsewhere. Oh, I don't have any outreach automation tools. I don't have any support with marketing and, getting content out there, and they want me to build a brand, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do because there's nothing there. So we do get a lot of people bringing that up as problems in the business, making sure. So when we go to market, and I'll let you guys on a little tip, like when we go to market, we identify and outline the tech stack that businesses, have to offer. So for example, if we're creating some content for a candidate and then we said to them, look, go and work for these guys, they're phenomenal, they're amazing, they do this X, Y, and Z, here's their marketing, their tech stack that you'll get given on day one is Sourcewell, LinkedIn Recruiter, is this, is that, Dripify, whatever it is. And they're sitting there like, wow, so not only am I getting all of this, I'm getting paid that, and I have all these tools and resources to do my job extremely well, and it's proven to work. So it's something that we use as ammunition a lot, and does make businesses stand out if they can provide good, tech capability.
We've got, just going back to that thing you mentioned a couple of times, that there's less available talent. Just put that into context for us. So you're saying that there's a lot fewer people to choose from.
Yeah, so I put it in this perspective, and I've said this a lot recently. When you look from 2023, you had all of the big outfits in the industry, the Hazes, the Storms, the Frank Groups, all these companies were bringing in humongous cohorts of like junior graduate talent through the door. They were hiring, 10, 20 every quarter, and it was just constant, but not just one business. There was multiple businesses doing the same thing. Over the last year or two, those businesses have either stopped doing it, slowed down doing it, or not doing it at all, which is the next generation of talent, and I feel like the graduate hiring market had slowed down so much last year and the year before in general across the board, regardless. So that generation's, again, so much smaller now, that you aren't seeing those 1 to 2 year recruiters moving around the market with 100 to 200k capabilities anymore that everyone's trying to go after. So everyone's fighting at the minute, in my opinion, for the same talent, and everyone in that talent pool at the moment is at the same level, has had the same negatives, or problems on billing in the last year or two, and it's not really generated anything that much newer for us to go after. And as Rec to Rex, like, we rely on those people coming through the door as the next generation for us to move around the market. They go there for a year, they get the training, they get the development, and then someone else who's smaller will take them on board and make them better. That has not been the same. It really hasn't. And that's been a problem for all, which is why I'm saying to a lot of firms, you've got to look after what you've got in your business and get as much out of them as you can. And if they're doing 200 grand, you need to find a way to get them to do 250 grand, because it's going to save you more and it's better for your business in the long run than trying to go after talent that might not be there.
Yeah. Let's go into the leadership piece then. What are people looking for when it comes to leadership and culture that's really going to either retain them or attract them?
I'm going to say this from experience with my own team, but also from what I see elsewhere. I think it's support. But I know this is going to sound crazy, and I thought about this morning. It's also to do with a little bit of boredom. It's people doing the same thing over and over again. And I think what a lot of we get calls by big billers, big recruiters who are doing over let's just say they're £1 million a year biller. You've got to remember that after 5, 6 years, yes, they're comfortable earning the same money, they're doing really well, they're very happy with that, but they need more. They need a new challenge. They need to see something different. So, and business found, us founders, get into a habit where we sit there and we just rely on those billers to keep making us loads of money and are doing so well for our bottom line. And it's great. But what we're not doing is actually sitting there thinking, okay, well, do they want to keep doing that? Is that something that they're happy with? Is there another way we can split up what they're doing and give half of it to someone else and they can start progressing into this? And I think we need to remember that there's an element where they get a bit bored and it's doing something, it's tedious, despite the earning potential there for them. So we're seeing that there's a lot of, from a leadership point of view, is actually just thinking about how they must feel, and creating then the layers in the business to protect not that just that person staying, but also the future of where your business is going financially as well with their income that they've been generating.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hosted an event for big billers. Somebody asked me to do some sales training that I've never done in my life, and I said, I'll tell you what I will do. I'll take one super biller from 12 different companies, and I'm going to get them in a room for 3 hours, and we're going to learn together. So different industries, but the common trait they all had, they're all super billers for at least 5 years, and they absolutely loved it, because even though they could produce the numbers year after year, they'd stop learning a little bit. And it was a really interesting exercise when they were hanging out in a room with somebody else, which is what we do quite a lot of at TRN. They actually got really stimulated by the fact you can learn tips and tricks from other people doing exactly the same job. It's interesting. Do you think, because again, leadership and management has always been critical to anyone trying to scale, do you think we're getting better at it or worse at it? Or one of my observations when I first came into the industry is we're not investing enough in leadership and management if we want to get the best out of our team. Because what you were talking about a second ago was support, development, all the things that great leaders and managers should be doing. Are you seeing more of that or less of that? Is that getting cut out during the difficult trading times?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of pressure on a lot of founders at the moment, that they're just kind of cutting their time a lot shorter with the patience that they have with the billers in the business. And I think that is where people are finding it more problematic. And I spoke to a founder recently who had let go of a few of their billers that hadn't been doing so well the last few months. But I said to them, what did they bill last year or the year before? And it wasn't too bad. I said, so what's the problem? Why did you get rid of them? Because they're not making us any money at the moment. They're not performing, their attitude, this. And I went, well, perhaps you should have had a conversation with them, and maybe it's to do with what you've done or you could change with them. It didn't take it very well, obviously, but I did have that conversation with them. Look, at the end of the day, a lot of the billers in the market have struggled in certain aspects of what they do. It's up to us to identify ways that we can help them improve and give them more time and do things better. And if you can cut costs in other areas of the business to give these guys and girls a bit more time to do their job better, maybe it is a point of, that they're in a wrong market and they're just focused on the wrong thing. And really for us as founders to do some research in that market and seeing if it's the right place for them to attack right now, or maybe pivoting them into something else. And there's so many different areas and dynamics that we can explore to try and figure out, okay, well, are they a good recruiter? Yes. Are they capable? Yes. Do they work hard? Have they got the right attitude? And they doing the right things? Yes. So maybe it's a case of, okay, are they in the right market? Are they in the right geographical location of markets? And it's really just, I know, look, I'm sure we'll do this anyway, but it's really just trying to understand, do we have the right person in this business? And then finding a way to make it work with them somewhere else and in another way. Maybe it's not about tools. Maybe it's not about a tech stack. Maybe it's about, maybe it is their attitude. Maybe their attitude is like that because they're unhappy, rather than it's just because they can't be bothered to work. Maybe they just don't like the way. So there's a few things there that we, really have to dissect, to make sure that we're understanding how to manage and lead these guys and girls properly. Because I promise you now, like, I generally think that it's more important than ever before to retain what you've got in your business than trying to keep going after something new. Because if that
Yeah,
biller isn't billed in 3 months and you get rid of them and replace them with someone else that won't bill for potentially another 3-4 months,
yeah,
that's 6 months, that's a half a year gap. And that person may not work out. And then you're even going around in circles again. So it's in your best interest is to try and find a way to make that person better that's already
yeah.
there.
It's yeah, and that goes good old classic management is the first question we ask if we've got underperformance. Is there anything I haven't done or could be doing before I start looking at them? No, I love that. You've just said something, and I'm going to come to your question, Thomas, because I think that's a great question. You just talked about, is there a way that we can support them to free up time so they can increase their productivity and performance? You've got a brilliant business in South Africa where you outsource, and a lot of our members work with you to get lower cost resource, and it works really well. But one of the questions, and Thomas touched on it, do you see where we're introducing AI and automations all over the place to free up the people? Do you think that has become a little bit of a comfort factor for some recruiters who kind of over rely on the AI and automation and maybe not investing or developing themselves to work on that human side of recruitment? Whether it's the consultancy, the relationship management, etc., etc.
I'm going to say no. I don't believe that recruiters in the market are being distracted by AI or anything else. I think that the market is distracted in itself with it, and I think that's not a negative thing. I think it's a good thing but we still need. There's still so much for us to learn and to develop and how to use it. And in the interim, we still need to do our job. And the recruiters and the businesses, I believe, are still doing their job or trying to do it. I
Yeah,
think that the automation is automation, and we've been working with automated tools for a while now. But and ChatGPT is is a helpful assisted tool, but it's not going to change the way that we recruit and how we recruit.
yeah,
In my opinion, and I think that outsourcing is a solution for businesses to kind of keep their costs low, and that's kind of why it's worked really well because salary spend is so high, and it's our biggest cost as a founder in recruitment is that we're just spending too much money on salaries. So the
yeah,
solution on the outsourcing that we provided now for our business was, was to kind of create a different angle, but still get the same talent,
yeah,
but still get the same result for our clients. And, that has helped a lot of businesses save a lot of money and do the same job. But I don't think AI has had any impact on that at all at the moment.
yeah. But what one thing we're seeing, and we help our members in terms of developing some of the skill set that the best recruiters have, whether it's around the consultancy, relationship building, etc., or the art of BD. Let's just go on to attrition. Early signs of attrition. What do you tend to? What are some of the clues that business leaders should be looking out for?
I think attitude is one thing, but not to not to use that as a perception that they're unhappy, but there's something going on with them
Yeah,
personally or mentally or whatever it may well be. But that's the first thing is someone's kind of is looking at them mentally and thinking, are they the same person? Is something's not right here. Other than that, it's kind of like the usual stuff is like, and this is one thing that I've been tricked on in the past. I'm sure we all have. The KPIs are set for a reason to kind of achieve certain goals and targets, right? And even if someone's unhappy, they're still going to hit those KPIs and targets. But it's the results from those KPIs and targets that are going to tell us whether they're actually doing it for the sake of doing it or to get the right results or the best results. And I think once we start, in my opinion, seeing that they're just doing it for the sake of doing it, they're either doing it because they don't know what to do, how to do it in the right way, or they're doing it because they're unhappy and they're not going in with the right kind of the right sort of target focus to get the results that they need. And that's a sign that I believe we've seen a lot in the industry, because when we speak to recruiters, again, we qualify. What's your KPIs? How are you hitting them? What do you do with them? Blah, blah, blah. And most of the time they turn and say, yeah, I've got KPIs. I'm always hitting my KPIs, but they're still interviewing and looking to leave.
mm,
And I think that businesses can really identify someone hitting their KPIs for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons. That's one
yeah,
thing I think is a really important sign to just be aware of, when looking at your staff, and not thinking that, oh, we'll keep them here. They're doing really well. They're hitting all their KPIs, but they're not producing the results because they're not happy.
yeah. And that happiness thing is interesting. I mean, whether you're a billing manager, and we all know how tough a job that is, or whether you're a small business owner, how much we know or don't know about our levels of motivation or engagement of our people is absolutely critical. I mean, we give all the members something called the motivational check-in survey, and we do employee engagement surveys, and it's fascinating what people do with it when they finally understand levels of motivation. Or the other thing that interests me is that coaching is definitely the number one management skill that I like to see across all of our members, and to what extent our managers are capable or of developers enough of an expertise generally to ask the right questions, to unearth some of the things that people are really feeling about life, their business, their work, all that kind of stuff. And my view is not enough. Too many managers do not have that skill set.
One thing I did, and really one thing probably the best thing I've ever done, is my leadership team, one in the US and one in South Africa and one here, I put them in touch with performance coaches. You know, one of them has got a holistic coach because that's what she preferred, and it allows her to stay grounded. You know, allows her to stay and that's kind of the person that they are, and I think that's great. And the other one that I've got as a coach is more motivational, more kind of like, you know, how could we deal with your challenges and problems, and you know, they've got that constant support, whether I can, because I can't give them everything, you know, and my mind and my focus is elsewhere. So giving them performance coaches and, you know, helping them, and that's not only just as an incentive, but it's also really beneficial for me and for the business. I've got someone else in the background that's keeping a close eye on the performance and making sure that they're at the level that they need to always be at. And I've said this to quite a few businesses, like definitely something that's worth exploring for your leadership team. You know, we always think that someone's okay in our business. We always, oh no, they're fine, they're all right, they're getting on with it. But we're just assuming, you know, we're making huge assumptions here. But you know, there is other ways, like I've just said, to try and make sure that you know, we're always keeping an eye on what's going on in a different way.
We've got to be asking the questions. You and obviously after the period that we've been through in a lot of sectors, maintaining the levels of motivation and engagement to really push on is challenging, and that's where we see all our members. It's quite interesting. Every time we track member performance and we benchmark it for members so they can see how they're doing it. But when we see members who are flying, they've invested in leadership and management, whether it's personal investment in the leader, or they've just stopped and think, what do I need to be? What skill set do I need to have to run a business now, this year, next year, etc. And where they invest in that and they bring in the kind of leadership and management excellence and the coaching capability that you were talking about.
The other thing that's really effective as well, and that we do, like obviously, and I'm sure a lot of businesses do it, we do a quarterly catch up with the business, the whole business in one go. We sit there and we go through our performance as a company, what we did right, what we did wrong, you know, how we're trying to improve on that, and what our plan is for the following quarter, you know, recognizing achievements. You know, it doesn't mean that it has to be the biggest biller. It's recognizing everyone in the business has achieved something. So making sure that everyone feels like that they're always being recognized for that is quite key. So we do that once a quarter. But the team also, we do a catch up every Wednesday. So everyone has 10 to 15 minutes every Wednesday with their leader to kind of just go through a one-to-one. And as much as you might think, oh, that's quite a lot, it's another meeting, like it's just 10 minutes. How are you doing? How are you getting on? Anything you want to go through with me in confidence, blah, blah. And it really works nicely every Wednesday. So we're just constantly on top of it. And then once a month, and this might sound like a lot now, but once a month, our office manager is mental health trained and she's an advocate for it. And she talks to every member of the business once a month herself over a coffee or a virtual coffee, just to kind of talk to them off the record. And if you can have someone in your business that really has a care and a need for that, it really goes down very well that, you know, it's a different conversation. Look, she doesn't report back to me what's going on and what's happening unless it's important or serious. But it allows them to just be heard and listened. And if the idea is needed to be suggested, it's quite nice.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the other interesting thing on that is you know, the Gen Z, 25% of the workforce is Gen Z. They require a certain employee experience that's different from previous generations. And if we don't get that, we're just going to be missing out. We're just absolutely going to be missing out. We've got to understand our employees, and different generations are a little bit different.
Yeah, we've got to get away from that old recruitment method, old school working recruitment method of come in, here's the phone, here's the computer, get on with it. Let's make some sales, let's do some deals, and you know, I don't care about how you feel. You get to work on time and do your job. Unfortunately, we can't be like that anymore. It's
Yeah,
got to be a little bit more kind of arm around the shoulder, and how can we help you do your job, and how can we get you there? And
yeah,
some of them look. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people would just do it, and that's their motives and their determination. But unfortunately, there's a lot out there that need it to be managed otherwise.
yeah. The other thing that I see missing too often is some sort of vision for where the business is going. If there's too much short-termism, and I get short-termism in a difficult market, but this is a you can't see the detail, don't worry about it, but this is a member, they've been with us 8 years, they start off with 10 people, they've now got 80 people, they're profitable, award winning, and they just have the discipline that you're talking about in terms of looking after their people, getting their people excited and engaged.
Yeah.
So year after year, they reinvigorate, they refresh, they review, they stand in front of the vision and saying, what are we trying to build here, guys? And it doesn't matter whether you get COVID or you get economic downturns, the people in that business like and understand where they're trying to go. And that's just good old fashioned leadership, that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about scaling then, because we've actually got quite a number of members that are scaling and investing at the moment. There is absolutely no doubt there is less cash in the world of recruitment than there was 2 years ago.
Yep. There is.
Are you seeing people make the right call when it comes to deciding to invest in new heads? And how do you tend to work with, how do you tend to recommend to recruitment business leaders about when to invest and how to make sure they're not burning through the cash?
So I see so many businesses are quite skeptical and they're questioning their own decisions at the minute around how to hire, when to hire, and who to hire, and pulling the trigger. Our clients are doing the same. Your clients are doing the same in your markets as well right now, and I think that's become like a big thing. So when I speak to a lot of businesses, I'm producing different data to show them, how to kind of make a decision, and different strategies, and that's kind of with Cayman. And what we did with the group is we just kind of created different areas of how can we save you money, how can we help you do something different but continue with your journey that you're on. Look, don't get me wrong, like there's still, and I've noticed for a fact, there's loads of businesses still being bought, there's divisions of businesses still being bought. It doesn't have to be a company that's been bought, it could be just one part of your business, and there's so much of that still going on, and I'm hearing on that quite regularly. So it's not that bad. But when it comes to growth, like, and again, I'm going to use the outsourcing aspect of this. There's so many elements of a business that can be outsourced to to wherever it is, whether it's South Africa or anywhere else, that can really save you a lot of money.
Yeah,
Why would you spend, if your back office function of 5 heads is costing you $250,000 a year on salaries, and you're spending, that kind of money, you could outsource that, save half of that, put 125 grand of that into that, and then into something else. And that might be bringing in more sales talent and more salespeople. And I think that no one at the moment is struggling to grow. I think they're just struggling with the strategy of how to grow and where to do it as well. And it doesn't help when you see a lot of noise about America. If you're doing the UK and European markets and you haven't touched the US yet, and all you keep seeing is about how good the US fees are, it's a distraction. But I also think that it's important that you really think about your strategy or rechange your strategy, because the US market has been proved to revamp businesses in a different way completely. And it's actually helped businesses survive as well doing the US market. So look, I've been told loads of different things around how to kind of keep the growth going, and whether you're outsourcing or using automation to kind of make things a lot easier. There's a lot of methods out there to make this work. But it's difficult to tell you. I always go down the 90-day sprints that the TRN has always taught me. And I'm always 90 days, 90 days, 90 days. I don't do anything beyond that because it's too unpredictable. And I think if you can achieve a 90-day goal and set that out on what you want to achieve and have a small strategy for growth within that, every time you do that, every quarter, it will just keep growing and growing as long as you're achieving it, rather than worrying about in 2 years' time. When we hear businesses say, "Oh, we're going to be at 100 heads," and they're only at 10 in 2 years, I sit there and I'm like, "Oh my God!" It's like, please don't say that. Like, it's very difficult to see where you're going to be in 2 years' time But every 90-day sprint is in my opinion where you're going to see a lot more growth.
Yeah, but one thing we're encouraging members to do, as you know, at the moment, is really challenge that operating model, and it's quite interesting because whereas again 10 years ago when we set up TRN World, there was a lot of vanity metrics such as how many heads have you got in your business, whereas now actually it's people are really focused on the bottom line. So the leaner team complemented by technology, complemented by outsourcing, offshoring, more and more of our members are doing it. They're understanding the model for profitability, because they used to talk about a third, and now it's kind of 60, 20, 20. And it's a different model. Our cost base has increased. So where we see the improvement in profitability coming through, it's where they've made the moves around internal change to the operating model, plus focused on the right markets and getting the machine. And then your numbers add up and you can start investing. And that's certainly what we're seeing.
But it depends. Well, there's one other thing, and I've been asked about this recently, is that 180 model. A lot of businesses are kind of still contemplating whether they go down the 180 route and they split up their sales to resource, which may help them with their scalability as a business and their growth.
Yeah.
And I've got two clients that we work with, one in America and one in the UK. The American business has basically changed their whole setup. They've now outsourced their entire resource function. They've got 10 plus resources in South Africa sitting there delivering to their business in America. And the team in America on the front line are all just business developers and account managers on the client side. And it works extremely well. So they're spending what they need to spend on the client-facing side of it, but the resource side, they're saving an absolute fortune with the exact talent that they need, and they're just delivering and just feeding resource. And it's a machine. It is generally a machine now that works really well. There's a company in the UK I work with that have basically reduced their business in the UK. They've invested a lot more into the US, but they're now investing a lot more sales support in South Africa. And they're doing it the other way around. So all the sales guys are sitting in SA, opening up doors, bringing in new opportunities. And the recruiters that they've got in their business in America are the ones that are sitting there taking it over and controlling the process thereafter to get the deals done. And these models have worked incredibly well and, are very successful. So there's and these businesses were initially 360 traditional models, and they changed their dynamic to make this work.
Yeah, it's funny. I was running a workshop the other day with a member, and they're shifting from 360, and they've got a decent sized business. So is your view or your observation that 360 is a dying breed?
I don't think it's a dying breed. I think it's something that definitely works and is probably 80% of the industry. But the ones that are using that model have been brave enough to kind of just go for it, and it works for them. I wouldn't sit there and agree or disagree with you, but I just think that it's a model that does work. And whether you're brave enough to kind of change the dynamic of your business to make that work is something to accept, to get away from the 360 model.
Yeah, definitely. But that lean BD machine, we're seeing more and more of that model come out.
And it works extremly well.
Yeah.
And you can do it, and you can make that work for a lot lower of a cost as well than having to sit there hiring 40, 60K a year salary BDMs in London. There's so many other avenues to do it. And it doesn't mean you go and automate it through the likes of a Sourcewell or using those platforms, because you still need someone to manage it. But you can still hire good people and do it a different way.
Yeah. We actually produced, just on the investment piece, we developed a tool called the Sigma Scorecard, which allows people to predict whether it's good times, as in good times I can invest, or bad times I need to cut back. And it's really fascinating because none of our members are finance gurus, none of them are FDs. Most of them don't have an FD sat around the table. So we've used our FD pool to create a really cool tool. And it's amazing the confidence it then gives you as a business leader to say, right, I now know when I can take someone on and when it's too early. Just so hiring, this is it changes. I don't know whether it's cyclical. You'll know better than me, Elliott, but this thing about hiring experienced talent or developing your own, which is an annual debate whenever we start hiring. What are you seeing and what are you recommending?
We're seeing most people, if not everyone, trying to hire experienced talent.
Okay.
People that can come in, that can plug and play, and with the expectation that they can make money a lot quicker, because not a lot of firms have got the learning and development capability to train and develop new people all the
Yeah.
time. Or the fact that it's got a lot more liability to it than, they may be in and out the door in 3 months because they don't like recruitment, or
Yeah.
there's a problem. So I think people, because of the consciousness of spend at the moment, are going for more experienced talent right now, even if that means they've got 6 months to a year experience,
Yeah.
that they've kind of had a taste for it. That's where we see predominantly a lot of businesses trying to go. One thing that we've seen as a challenge at the moment is those businesses still trying to do that and only going for 360 recruiters with track records. We've got a client in London who are a very big business, global business, and they're doing very, very well. What they've done is they don't care what recruiters have built in the last 18 months. As long as they're 360 trained, they will bring them in and they will develop them the way that they need to continue developing them, because they know that they have had challenges and difficulties the last 18 months on their own billings. They're just taking them as a foundation and then using that. And it's worked out extremely well for them, because it's as good as getting a good trainee in that's not actually been a finished article, has not had the right direction or the right market to recruit into, and they're using that and taking advantage. So
Okay, so we're not talking about the really experienced ones. These are people who've been understand 360, and they're now going to do it in a better home.
They're just doing it better. They don't care if they've built 50, 100 grand, because a lot of the time we get calls and they're like, oh, we only want billers that have got 150, 200K minimum billing.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, well, we'll try and find you those, but, most likely they're comfortable or they're, there's whatever. But, in this instance, this company didn't care if they build 80 grand. As long as they know how to do the job, 360, capable, driven, they will take that and finish the article themselves. And they've built their business extremely well with doing that. And there's a few other companies that we've worked with that have done the same at a smaller scale, but that is where I see a lot more potential at the moment in this market, rather than trying to always find that hidden gem from your competitor who's not going to move. And, at the end of the day, why do they need to move to you?
Yeah, no, fantastic. Listen, I'm conscious of time. It's always fascinating to speak to you, because even though we're in this period of massive change that we're seeing, some things have never changed. So you better have the right leadership and management, etc., and you better learn how to coach. And yet it is evolving and changing, and new operating models are taking over. And I think things like offshoring and is becoming the norm, and new models that people are really embracing and getting behind. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope that's given you some thoughts, some things to think about. If you're not a TRN member, come and join us. We just learn together, and we've got some phenomenal members sharing what they do so that we can all learn collectively. And we hang out with cool people like Elliott, who has got something to help us all get better. So thank you, mate. I'm going to see you tomorrow. We've got 30 odd heads of talent coming together, so we're going to
look forward to it.
See what they're up to. Have a great week, everybody. Great to see you.
Thanks all. Take care.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the TRN podcast. Thank you for listening. And make sure you grab the free episode toolkit. All the links are in the description. And click follow in your podcast app so you can get notified of our next episode. If you want to get more out of your business and your people, then please unlock 30 days from our platform, TRN World, for free. And help yourself to all our training content, our guides, our templates, and peer insights. You can get started at trnworld.com/trial. And finally, if you found this episode of the TRN podcast of use, please share it with your network and tag TRN on any socials with your takeaways. Otherwise, message us directly if we can help in any way. We do reply to every question. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on the next TRN podcast.